All right, we're going to do 2 readings. I'm going to hit you with the first one right away. Then we'll talk for a little while, and then I'll do the second reading. So here we go. I did a series of videos recently that were about the death of Salome party. This takes place after the party. Now, in the book, the party is just starting. Like the chapter before this is where we introduce Salome. So in the book, like you'll see the start of the party, and then the next chapter is the ramifications of the party. And then those kind of things play out for each other so that you can see while the party's going on, you can see like what's happening or what happened after the party. Okay. It's called The Madness. Now, this video is not something that you should watch if you haven't read The Madness Wars, because it is all about spoilers for The Madness Wars. So I'm going to read this, but if you haven't read The Madness Wars, turn the video off now and go read The Madness Wars is all I can tell you. So here we go. The chapter is called The Madness, and it takes place after the party. He shoved his waist to his knees and vomited. He could not stand. He would not stand. He stayed on his hands and knees, looking at his vomit as it rolled around the floor. And he heard the calm, almost loving voice of his mistress. Get up, Madness, or I will make you eat it, the Valkyrie chimed. She seemed so disarmed, blissful, as if his loss of control made her so happy. He looked at his meal spilled out before him and shoved his way to his knees. The room pitched and reeled, and he cursed. Rexter Sherlock gripped the wall and summoned every bit of pride he still possessed. He fought his way to his feet. He grabbed the twisting walls but it did little to steady him. He felt the searing agony of his back open up, and he stumbled to the door of the tiny room. He threw it open and stomped outside. The sea air slapped him in the face, washing from his nose the scent of his own vomit. He staggered out of the tiny room afforded him and swayed on the deck. The sailors hurried out of his way, their faces locked in panic as he walked among them. They saw his back ripped open from her whip and pulled back in horror. He climbed the stairs to the steer deck and looked at the captain with hard eyes. The man ran his finger around the scruff of his beard. Rexter stared at the motion, then wiped his beard below his mouth and came away with a bit of his lunch. He grimaced and turned his face in the direction they were headed. The gentle sway of the sea plays hell on the landman's gullet, the captain said. Did you leave a mess for my scrub boy to clean? The sailor laughed. I told your scrub boy not to clean my room. I told him not to bring me a blanket. I told him not to bring me food or see to my comfort in any way. Rexter tugged his beard and stomped his feet. Yet that little deformed bastard did all those things. He left my room spotless, and I suffered for it. Rexter turned his back to the sea captain, who hissed, You're ripped from bow to stern. What did that to you? A man gasped. I will not stand in the way of your vengeance. Say his name, and I will bring him to you. Rexter gripped the captain and jerked him close to glare in his eye. The man's hand flinched toward the sword, but he didn't pull it. Do you think any of your scurvy crew could have laid a lash to my back without me burning them to the ground for it? Your men are pitiful when they set against me. I could kill every member of this crew with barely a wave of my hand. Rexter shouted loud enough for the entire deck to hear him. Then who tore you open, Madness? The man in his grip asked. The captain smiled, and Rexter gripped the man by the throat. The sky cracked with a lick of lightning that slammed the sea many miles away. Rexter tossed the man aside. You need not worry about my back, Rexter said. Just get me to this island that your lord commands. Rexter looked up at the 50 or so ships that sailed behind him. all belonging to the newest member of the Hoodsman, and he cursed. She's getting too powerful. Castles, towers, and now this. The Valkyrie possesses a navy. Rexter turned in the direction the boat moved and saw the waters shift in strange patterns. What's this then? He snapped at the castle. Sir, the circle of monsters is upon us, a scrawny sailor yelled up from the main deck. A wider, more muscled man slapped the speaker. Silence, you fool, or I'll throw you in them, the man hissed. Rexter looked at each man, seeing fear running supreme. What is this pall that grips your men? Rexter asked. The captain held his fingers to his lips. The water here runs with sea beasts. Keep your voice low. We do not wish to rouse them. Rexter rolled his eyes and walked to the side of the ship. The water moved very strange. Sections rippled with waves, but these waves seemed to originate from a central spot and move outward. There were many of these epicenters around him. He noticed the center of the wave seemed to pulse. He looked back at the captain, real fear on the man's face. What troubles these waters? Rexter whispered. The man has tamed the Leviathan. The master has tamed the Leviathans. They answer his command. Once you pass into his circle of monsters, you have 6 hours to land. Oh, we are almost there, the man said. Almost where? Rexter asked. The Island of Dragons, the captain said. We're but hours away. Rexter nodded, looking back at the waters, dark forms moving below them. He went back to his room. He needed a dress. He needed his armor. He might have called to use his sword. When the man has reached his room, he walked to the drawers that lined one of the walls and thumbed the knob to open it. He looked into the deep drawer, and a slight whine escaped his lips. The chess piece within seemed to stare at him with hungry eyes. Rexter closed his eyes, calling back the moment it had been given to him. He nearly wept when he ripped the tattered remains of his shirt from his body and slowly pulled the next one on. His back instantly soaked the linen in blood, but he hardly noticed. He looked again at the chess piece and nodded grimly. Rexter picked it up. It was red and black, a steel back, and a chest piece that was hinged at the side, allowing him to close it around his body. He'd scratched the carving within the day after it was given to him, a fist rising from under a mountain. He ran a loving fingertip across the crude carved symbol and closed his eyes. This was the mark of the one man Rexter considered friend, the man who could best him, the man he loved and hated equally, who had damned him to this life. Rexter blinked back the tears that rose. He held his breath and slipped his torso into the armor. When in its confines, he braced himself, but knew it would not help. The two halves snapped together as barbs protruded from the inside. As fangs dug into his chest and his back, he sobbed in one silent cry of utter pain. The rest of his armor now bit down on him when he slipped into it until he was encased in a steel mouth. He gripped his sword, feeling the handle sear his skin, and swung it on his back. He stomped out of the room to stand the deck again. In his full battle dress, no man dared look at him, and he walked to the bow of the ship and stared forward until he saw the faint, thin line on the horizon. The watch did not call out for land. He walked about the ship, whispering to everyone that they were here. They had arrived at the Island of Dragons. The dock was stone and well laid. It was carved with glyphs and symbols of the sea, starfish and seahorses, along monstrous fish and squirming tentacles. Rexter stepped onto it and looked around him. The Armada dropping anchor in the harbor. Rexter inspected every one of them at the last shore. He had checked every board, every mast, and had gone over every knot inside. The Armada was well kept, the men seeming competent. The captain looked at Rexter from the boat. Farewell, Madness. Good luck on your dealings with my master. You will find what most already know, the captain said. What is that? He's smarter than you, and he owns you already. You just don't know it yet. Rexter spun and marched up the dock. When he was within a few steps of the land, a shape slipped from the trees to stop before the pier he stomped. She was the loveliest thing he had seen in so long. A delicate breeze of a woman, pale with golden hair and a narrow frame. She wore her beauty in a way she moved the way She posed, and the slender hand she waved at him with. Do not let the Valkyrie know you desired her, Rexter whispered to himself. Last time was nearly unbearable. When he reached the land, the woman curtsied. You must be Rexter Sherlow. Her voice was honey, her lips rubies. I'm Rexter Sherlow. You may call me the Madness. Oh, come now. We can do better than madness. How about I call you Rexter? She smiled at him with a devilish mouth. I'll call you Rex. Do not. Too late. It has already become your entire identity. Now, I was sent to bring you to your transportation and see you to the castle proper. I will not be transported, he said, looking at her pale blue dress that clung tight, slipped to the middle of her thigh. I will walk. You can meet me at the castle. I have no further use of you. He pushed past her only to find her before him again, holding a hand up and stopping him abruptly. I am not dismissed. I am not walked around. I will not be ignored. Have you been commanded by a woman? Ever been commanded by a woman, Rex? Every day, my lady. Well, I am a lady who will not be denied. Rexter was starting to like her. He cursed. I'm not of drying. The women there are toys for men to play with and bump up against. I'm not that sort of woman. I am Penelope Westa. Wista. You call me Penelope. And I have been set to fetch you. You will get on your ride and I will take you to the master. Rexter gripped her by the delicate arm and pulled her close. Her scent was not flowery and powdery as he expected it to be. It was the scent of some oil that had been rubbed into her body. Suddenly, he could see her nimble hands rubbing down her body, and he let loose of her immediately. I was sent here by your master's mistress, Rexter said. I was told to inspect the fortifications and the grounds and see if this place will be suitable to operate from. It's quite impossible for me to fail at my task, so I will ask you this one time. Leave me alone and let me walk this island. She stepped up beside him and ripped his dagger from his waist. He reached out for her, but she spun away fast. She gripped her dress, and with a calm and steady hand, she sliced away much of the hem. She twisted as she slashed until she had cut the length to mid-thigh. Her legs were perfect. Her skin looked soft. She handed him back his knife. You see, Rexter, it's quite impossible for me to fail my master as well. It will be I who walks you to the castle gate. I will be traveling with you on foot. She took her sandals off her feet and set them carefully on the pier. Rexter knew he had sorely misjudged her. He motioned for the force and she directed him to the path. He shook his head. I will go off the road. You will be devoured. She took his hand and he took it back. Do not touch me, he whispered. If that beautiful woman ever touches you again, I will make you carve from your body the spot she caressed and eat it, the Valkyrie snapped in his mind. Do not touch me again. Swear it, Rexter said. I swear it. I will not touch you again, Penelope said. If you go off the road, you will summon them to us. They are roused by the slightest tread of footfalls on the ground. Rexter walked up the path a bit before turning suddenly and stepping out into the forest grounds. What will I summon? What will I summon? I do wonder. Penelope's face grew grave and she reached to pull him physically from the road, but he pulled back in horror from her fingers. He heard a slight whooping sound from within the trees, then another. What comes? You must protect me now, she said. They will rip me off the road now, too. Rexter grunted as she stepped off the road. The hungerers are coming, she said. Rexter slowly pulled his great sword from his back and swung it before him. The saplings not far away swayed and snapped, large shadows coming for him faster than any beast could run. Rexter grinned. 2 claw marks across his face and a slash down the back of his head, but no claw had punctured the armor. Rexter watched as the sword drank the gray blood of the hungerers on the ground before him, and a tickle in the back of his throat threatened to gag. Watching his sword feed always disgusted him. They seemed born of people, their bodies long and thin, their heads like big cylinders swinging on a narrow neck. Their hands were tiny, but the claws were huge, each hand seeming made up of nothing else. The face had 6 mouths. The thin legs widened at the feet to thick pads. They looked to can be comprised of wood, as if they were some abomination of the wild, as if a fever dream of a mad druid had lurched from the cavernous mind into the world of men. He killed 13 of them. Penelope cowered behind him, and he grimaced at her. They are dead. We can go, Rexer said. We need to go quickly. They will not stay dead for long, she said. Rexer looked around and stepped to the road. He took her word for it. He did not help her climb up onto the road because he would have had to touch her to do that. She struggled back up to the stone slabs and wiped her hands on her savage dress. She looked at him and gestured with her arms as if furious, but said nothing. Shall we then? Rexer said. She sneered at him before letting herself smile and lead him on. Anyone that stepped off the road is hunted by the hungerers. With a switch and a grinding of stone, the road sank to the ground here, disappearing when Master wills it. Therefore, if an aggressive force appears to endanger the Master, then his abominations will attack them. Rexer said. Yes, Rex, they do. That is if you can get to the shore for the monsters out in the sea. Yes, in fact, Fa has them all convinced that he has tamed the Leviathans, Rexer added with a chuckle. I will not argue with you. You seem determined to laugh at this place and call it less than it is. So I'll let you. Just know the hungerers have never had to fight an army of any sizable force, she said. Because the sea opens up and swallows them. They walked a long time. Hours passed, and she did not seem to grow uncomfortable with her bare feet. Rexter began to tire, and his respect for her grew. They stepped out very suddenly onto a wide field. A green sea of grass stretched out before them. I expected to see the castle from here, Rexer said. Oh no, Rex. We have days to travel ahead of us, Penelope said. A day, Rexer said, through this? The field's at least a day's journey from the castle. Hope you have food, because I'm hungry. You're not allowed to eat for another day. I'm not allowed to eat for another day, Rexer said. You're not allowed to eat. What kind of madness is this? A man must have 3 meals a day, no less. A man is to have 3 meals a day if he's allowed. I am not, Rexer said, but I have food. He pulled a small bag off his hip and handed it to her. She looked in as if it were a dead thing before she grabbed it and opened it. The smell wafted from within drew his mouth to watering and made his stomach roar. He turned his head away and she looked within. Oh my God, it smells so good. This bag must be enchanted, she said. Look at this meal. Rex, by the gods. Please eat quickly and quietly. I do not need to hear how good it is. He looked at the leg of chicken she pulled from his bag and bile rose to the back of his throat. He felt as if his stomach would wring itself to bits as she ate. He did the best he could not to keep from looking at her, but the sound of her chewing and the slight moan she made as she ate made it impossible. Watch her eat and know that will go cold and start to turn before you're allowed a mouthful. Then you will eat it all, madness. You will devour until I am tired of watching you. Rexter closed his eyes, but he did not pray. Okay, that was the first reading. I'm gonna come back and talk to you about it. And then we'll do another reading and all that kind of stuff. So today we are talking about Rexter, the Madness, and what happened to him after the Madness Wars, how he's being punished, and the life that he is living. So I'll be right back and we'll get into that. All right, so he had finally gotten comfortable sitting with Becca on that chair right there. Becca, finally comfortable. Everybody was all laid out. Everything was cool. I got up to take a break. Something broke downstairs. Some kind of piggy bank. Anyway, Becca had to go help sweep up the parts. So now you can see him over there. He's pretty depressed. His cuddle buddy is gone. She'll walk in while I'm describing and working on all this, and you'll get to watch the dance of him trying to get comfortable again. Yeah, look forward to that. Okay, so in the last video was about Normal Street, and Normally I have a 30-second, 25-second video in front of all my videos. You probably just saw one. All I had was the normal street cover for this one, for last week's. So normal street cover. That's what you saw. So I'm going to shamelessly plug my wife's book again. This is Song of the Leviathan. It goes, let me see if I can get it without a glare. It goes very, very well with both of my books. If you have read Teardrop and Normal Streets, pick up Song of the Leviathan. It'll take you through all of that, and it'll explain why it's called Song of the Leviathan. And you'll get to see some pretty intense stuff, ways that her work crosses over with my work and explains what was going on with her when I was going through the stuff that's in my work. Song of the Leviathan is definitely worth picking out. I'm not confident with the cover that I just showed you, so I will show you the cover of Song of the Leviathan right now. It's very beautiful. My wife did the cover art herself. Yeah, so check that out. Normal Streets is doing very well. I'm very happy with the sales that I'm getting and the way that it is affecting how people are reading my other work. So anyway, that's what I have to report for you for that. Now, getting back to what I just read you, it was probably a little confusing, especially if you don't know anything about the Madness Wars. And let me explain. The Madness Wars are built around a guy named Rexter Sherlow, who everybody calls the Madness, and he's a holy warrior for a god named Dis. And his job is to conquer this one nation. He's been studying this nation since he was a baby. He learned every possible thing he could about it so that he could invade it one day and conquer it. And the war is called the Madness War. There's another war going on at the same time. That's why the series is called the Madness Wars, because there's two wars this guy's trying to fight at the same time. Okay, so one of the things that happened is there is a wizard who shows up through all of my work. He is in Legends of Paralesque. He is in Mestelvin. He is in Hemlock. He is in Crown. He is in Wrath of Madness. Sakobar is found in Light of Madness. And you can see Sakobar again in Fate of Madness. He's everywhere, crossing over all the storylines. He becomes very, very important to my world. He's a psychopath. He is evil. He's very evil. And he's extremely powerful. But during the course of the Madness Wars, he becomes the slave of, there she is. He becomes the slave of a creature called the Valkyrie. Now, the way this happens is he's in the, all right, get comfortable, Jordan, go on.
I think you might want to go outside. Actually.
All right, well,
He's looking at me.
do something.
I'll be right back.
Do something. Okay, so in the Madness Wars, there is this group of people called the Hungry Caste. And the Hungry Caste is a group of wizards, and they feed off of magic, and they starve when they don't have it. And so they walk around most of the time thin and dying for any food. and the magic that they do end up happening to get is enough to fill their system. And then they can cast with that magic. But the most powerful thing about him is that they can suck magic off of anything magical at all. So a group of 6 to 8 of them find Sakobar as he's trying to flee the country at the beginning of the war. And they're going to suck all the magic off of him and he'll never be able to cast again. And magic is his life. So he calls out for anything that will help him. And here's in his what he says is, I am powerful, I am meant to be more than this, deliver me and I will be yours. And then he hears in his head, swear it. The voice was something beyond his hearing and beyond the mechanics of his body. It did not ring in his head, it did not fall upon his ears, it vibrated within his core, a voice that seemed to come from within and without, a voice that filled the world and was the world. Hope flowered in his body. His mind reached out frantic in the throes of it. Yes, yes, I swear, I will serve you. Give me your soul. Give me your soul and power over your body, and I will deliver you. I will give you the means to strike down your enemies. Yes, yes, all of it. I swear, I will be yours completely. I'm meant for more than this. Do not let this happen. I am better than this. And this is what happened. You're going to get to see what the Valkyrie looks like. The sky rent before him as a force beyond this world ripped free a flap of the heavens. Sakobar looked up through the tangle of arms and saw a flaming creature too awesome for his mind to wrap around. Its visage was the stuff of nightmares. Fangs protruded from its maw. Its hair was a broiling fire. Its eyes contained a wrath Sakobar could not look upon. The last of his aura clung to his body. The last smidgen of magical potential he had flapped around his form, and he felt the horrible hands close around it, the hungry cast. There was a spear reaching down from the heavens. Its tip crackled with flames. Its shaft gleamed bright and terrible. The tip was driven into Sakobar's chest, the flames wrapping him in vicious pain beyond his understanding of the word, and he was lifted from the ground. I claim you as one of mine, the voice stated, and Sakobar felt something massive and devastating wound wound round him. It fluttered out to encompass a crippling amount of space, and he felt it immense and wicked. It took him moments for the truth of the situation to come to mind, and when he did, he pulled all of the magic he could off of the world. His new devastating aura swelled with power, and he sent a ripple of its potency out in one great thrust. Every one of the cast members around him were lifted from their knees and tossed back like leaves in the face of a terrible wind. Okay. So that's the Valkyrie. And that's how she enslaved Sakobar. All right, get him up there.
I'm trying.
Get him up there. Small chair, big dog. Okay. Now he'll find a way to lay down. Okay. So basically what she does is she goes around and she enslaves the most powerful evil people the world knows. And she is a good creature. Doesn't look like it, but she is a force for good. She's not a goddess. She's a step down from a goddess, but she's a force for good. And she is going around the world collecting the most evil people she can find. Sakobar is their leader. And by the end of the Madness Wars, the Madness becomes her slave. So he goes to check out Falame's castle after the party, because Falame has become her slave as well. And that's what I just read you. You may have recognized the forest from when the Veiled Lady, Balix, and Tyr stepped off into the forest, and Balix fought that thing, and he grabbed that creature, the Hunger, and he crushed its skull. So you may remember, apart from that, from videos and videos ago. If you don't remember that part, that's totally fine. I completely understand, but that's basically what we're looking at. So we saw that scene. Now you're safe as long as you're on the path. But what we found out from Penelope, who is part of Falame's inner circle, is that from within the castle, he can flip a switch and the path sinks into the ground and then nobody's on the path. And then the hungerers come. So any army coming in to attack his castle has to go through that forest. And when they do, he can drop the road and they have to face an army of creatures that's trapped in that forest. We saw the waters around the island, the island of dragons. Some call it the island of monsters. And the waters are controlled by Falame with monstrous creatures that just swallow boats up whole and destroy anything that they want to, that Falame wants dead. No army has ever landed on his shores to take him over. So Rexter's here on a mission of discovery. The Valkyrie has told him, because he's been versed in warfare and castles and all that, the Valkyrie has sent him to this castle to assess it and find out what it's capable of and all that kind of stuff. So so then there's Penelope. Now the Valkyrie has all these evil people working for her, and she tortures all of them. She wouldn't let him have a blanket. She wouldn't let him have a clean room, all this kind of stuff when he was on the ship, and she punished him for it. She only lets him eat every other day. He carries around a bag full of succulent food everywhere he goes, and she won't let him eat any of it. When he came out of his bedroom in the ship, his back was last open. She whips him constantly. The armor that he puts on has teeth on it and spikes on it that dig into his body when he's walking around and moving. One thing you didn't find out is that the inside bottom soles of his shoes have spikes on them that he's constantly walking on. The man is constantly in mind-wrecking pain. The sword that he carries will sometimes heat up to the point where it'll sear his hands and burn all the skin off his hands. He's constantly being punished for what he did during the Madness Wars and what he did for his entire life, which was conquer people and enslave them. He's constantly being punished for that and being used by an evil entity to do good things. So that is that's the chapter that I just read, and there's a lot of spoilers in it. One of the major spoilers being that by the time this happens, Falame's party is over and Falame has become a slave to the Valkyrie. That's a big spoiler. That ruins a huge amount of story. However, those books won't be coming out for so long that by the time they do, you'll have long forgotten this particular thing. I'm going to put a spoiler warning not only in the caption when I post this video, but also on the video title itself. And that's what we just read. So The thing now is that I can get into another chapter from that book, or I could talk about another thing that happens after the that happens after the Mantis Wars in an alternate reality during a Sour Eye story, or I could talk about any of that stuff. However, what I have decided that I'm going to talk about instead is what I have been working on for the last 2.5 weeks, ever since Normal Street came out. Me and my wife have been hard at work, doing one particular thing and one particular thing only. I live on a 48-hour schedule. So I'll get up, like today I got up at around 4 in the afternoon. And I stay up all night, and then I stay up while my wife is sleeping, and then I stay up all day, and then I stay up all evening, and then I go to bed in the on the night the next night. So my bedtime is 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. It's just the lifestyle that I live. It's my circadian rhythm. It's the way that my body works. It took us a long time to figure out why I was sleeping the hours that I was, why I was always tired, all this kind of thing. I may have talked about it on here before. It's a disorder called non-24-hour awake sleep disorder. I hope they come up with a better name for it. It was just discovered in 2012, and they don't know a lot about it. They do know that one of the causes of it is bipolar, and that's why I have it. So anyway, so on the second day after dinner, I start to get to the point where I'm not really capable of doing anything really intense. And what I do is I spend most of my time just hanging out with my wife and relaxing and stuff like that. But this time right here is usually my most productive time, and that is right now. It is 9:53 on Thursday. I just woke up, been up for about 5 hours, 6 hours, and this is my most productive time. So for the last few days, few weeks, at around 10 o'clock in the evening, me and my wife go into one of the rooms of our house called the Veil. I'll show you pictures of it. And we've been writing out postcards. Postcards to people that are letting it be known that Normal Street and Teardrop Road are out. Kind of like birth announcements for my book. We've done over 80 of them. We had to write each one. And we had to write each one, and then we had to search the internet for the mailing addresses for each one of these people. So it's been something we've been working on for a very long time. Sometimes we only get 6 written. The final day we wrote 17. I do want to write 2 more tonight because there's 2 people that I think I've forgotten that I'd like to have. But basically, we're sending out a mass amount of postcards to a large crowd of people to let them know that the book is out and to give them their own private message as to why they should read the book. So what I'm going to do is there's a couple of them that I'm particularly proud of. Each one of them is their own piece of writing. And they're They're very unique. Each one is hand tailored to the person. It's not like a stamp of, repeated anything. I haven't. Each one of the postcards was personalized. That's why it was so hard for us to finish them and why it took so long. But some of it is some really good writing. And what I've decided to do today is I'm going to read you a couple of these postcards, largely because I'm very proud of some of them. And these are people, I won't read the name of the person that they're going to. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of what we've been working on, and I'm proud of some of this writing, so I want to share it with you. So I'm gonna go pick a couple of cards from the stack and bring them here and read them to you, and then we're gonna call it an end for the video. Shouldn't be a very long video today. I don't know how far into it I am. Did one reading, and I talked to you guys for maybe 20 minutes. It doesn't look like it's going to be a very long one today, but I'm going to go find some cards to read to you, and then we'll call that for the day. Oh, my pocket square. It looks like it matches my shirt perfectly, doesn't it? It's actually a very different color, but the colors in this on the Zoom are kind of weird sometimes, and so it looks like they match perfectly. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I almost got away with that, but I confessed to it. Anyway, I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the card you just saw. I'm gonna read you three. One is to my teacher. She's mentioned a couple times in my blog. She was my high school literature teacher. Made an enormous impact on me, and we wouldn't be right here right now talking about work in my books. This channel wouldn't exist without this woman. So Becca wrote really small as I was dictating this to her. She wrote very small, so I might have trouble I might have trouble making out some of this, so I might stumble around a little bit, but here we go. Did you smell the slight whiff of gasoline when you approached me the first day of my senior year? I was looking at a rack of books in the back of the room. Shadow had decided to steal your copy of Frankenstein. He wondered if there was a way of checking it out, something he had to sign. He was trying to figure out how he would get around that. Had you not distracted us and talked to artists about writing for your paper, you never would have seen that book again. I'll put his quick hands against your acute eyes every day. You see, we needed to understand the ramifications of building a monster. By the end of the year, you had actually brought us a copy. You bought us a lot of books. It was The Rime of the Ancient Mariner that hit us the hardest. After reading that book and staring at those Dora etchings, that I knew I had to write this book, because I've been forced my whole life to tell the story of my dead albatross. So many times my past has come up in conversation. So here it is, the rhyme from your Ancient Mariner. Refers to a poem that you should probably read if you ever get the chance. It's pretty amazing. Okay. So this is also to a teacher. He's a pretty cool guy, and he is mentioned in the blog. I think I read a story about him on one of my videos, and he's in my book. Very influential man. So here he goes. The other boys in 8th grade called you Herb. It infuriated me. I came up to you first day of algebra, pre-algebra in 8th grade. It was a class you had to test into. I looked at you and told you I should not be there. I was sure I had failed the test. You looked at me and asked my name. You said, "Oh, yes, I remember you. You got a 0% on your test." With a smile, you carefully explained the statistical impossibility of getting every answer wrong on a multiple choice test. And you told me to sit down. Shadow decided that day to hate you, but he already held a grudge against you. In 7th grade gym, there was a wrestling unit. The coach had you come in to teach it. And then he had us break off into pairs as you you and him walked the room. Shadow held a grudge against you that day because he had his man down on the ground. Shadow had a knee driven into the kid's chest and was fighting to force the heel of his hand into that kid's throat. And you yelled at him. I get it now, but how do you teach a street rat from gangland how to fight as a sport? As soon as I grabbed that kid, it was going to go wrong. Shadow forgives you. The grudge is over. So there's that one. And then this one. This is one to a friend of mine that I call Four Wins. She's pretty amazing. Here we go. My sons are gentlemen savages. They're kind and loving. They carry blades on them everywhere they go, and they've been trained. They can go from 0 to 10 in the face of any danger. And it's looking at their fierce eyes of my sons that I can finally label you. You're an elegant savage, capable of everything a woman needs to be in order to be proper and put together, while at the same time screaming at the sun for burning, howling at the moon for glowing. I call you Four Winds because the breath of the world gasps around you. I've never seen you still, but always churning with passion. And ever beside you, a man of power that matches your crazy. Just as proper as you, laughing, head thrown back, throat open, the only one that can mix with the mistress of winds. There are not many that can run with me. Tigers, Cage, X, Becca, and you. Our feet have pounded the ground with our hearts. Here's the path I ran. So, I've been doing that sort of thing right there for the last couple of weeks. And now I'm looking at the end of that. We did like 8, 10. The worst night was 6, but once we did as many as 17 in one night. Me on one side of the room, dictating to her on the other side of the room, writing it all down. It was very intense. I wrote, as you just read, I wrote some really intense stories. But yeah, it's going to be hard now to stop. I've got 2 more that I'm going to write. And then I'm going to send them to all corners. Some of them to the enemy. And some to close family, some to distant family. But I'm used to now, after 2.5 weeks, maybe 3, I'm used to sitting down with my wife and pouring my heart out to the people of my life. And it's going to be weird not to do that. I'm doing 2 today. One to an old friend from high school whose name in the book is Hardly. And then the other one is to another friend from high school who in the book is called Teddy. But it's going to be weird now to stop doing this, because right now I'm used to sitting down and telling my wife how I feel about the people in my life through artistic writing of that person, not to that person. There was a lot of really fun moments when I was writing them, and there were a lot of tears as I was telling these people what they meant to me and why they should read my book. Anyway, it's possible that you will receive a it's possible that you will receive a postcard if you are watching this. So yeah, we were able to, through hunting on the internet, we were able to find addresses for girls that I knew in 6th grade in a different state that I had only gone to school with for 8 months. My wife is a sleuth on the internet. Anyway, that's our show for today. Hopefully not as long as they have been recently. Anyway, Benny's Baseline is going to walk you to the door. Thanks for coming by the office and checking things out. And I will see you. I'll see you next week for the finale of this season. And it will be the last time you see me in this vest. And you'll get a look at the last pocket square. Those maybe you don't get excited about seeing what pocket square I'm going to wear every week, but you'd be amazed how much joy it brings me to display my pocket square every week. It's a level of fancy that I've never been in my life. So, all right, thanks for coming, and I'll see you next week.